Ben 10 is a franchise that has stood out heavily amongst its peers for many reasons, both good and bad. But one reason that is still heavily debated on whether it's for the better or worse of the franchise is the series' infatuation with constantly changing its art style. While it's not unheard of for an animated series to change its art style throughout its run, it's not very common. Most series usually stick to the style they first aired with, like with the entire DC animated universe, barring some small changes throughout its run, or the Avatar franchise, because changing your art style mid-run can cause more harm than good, like it did to American Dragon when it made that change between seasons 1 and 2 that pissed everyone off. Except for like me, maybe. I feel like I'm the only one who did it I just didn't see it as that big of a deal. Ben 10 though, while switching art styles more times than twice, the overall perception on these decisions and the art styles themselves have always been mixed. People thinking the classic art style is king and the Omniverse style is downright awful, to some feeling the complete opposite or just neutral throughout the whole thing. With such diversity on the topic, I figured I'd throw my hat into the ring and go through each main Ben 10 art style and just see how they change throughout the franchise. But before I do that, can y'all consider subscribing? A lot of y'all who watch these videos aren't subscribed, so I'd appreciate it if you subscribe. Alright, let's get to it. The classic series, to many and myself, has the best art style in the series hands down. That hard commitment to making everything feel so alien helped make Ben 10 feel unique amongst other Cartoon Network shows and just other shows, period. It was able to look like your cool action show appealing to most kids, but also had tons of elements that probably freaked and scared the shit out of other kids. Because I know damn well I was not, and I mean not, a fan of when Ghost Freak ripped his chest open and all those tentacles came out. Like, I ain't gonna lie, bro, you scared the shit out of me. The show's look is clearly inspired by that of comic books, which makes sense as Man of Action were a comic studio before working on Ben 10. The show also had comic book artists on the staff like Dave Johnson, a comic cover artist who worked with DC and Marvel. Johnson worked on Ben 10 during seasons 1 and 2, designing characters from the original 10 aliens to Vilgax. Other character designers featured David Williams, another comic book artist, and Phil Barassa, who worked on DC's Static Shock and a Batman movie titled Mystery of the Batwoman, which was also in the DC animated universe, all before he started to work on Ben 10. Tom Perkins though is one of the most notable artists on the classic series staff, having a hand in a lot of the main designs from season 2 and onward, like Upchuck, Charmcaster, and helping Dave Johnson with Kevin's mutated form, and also Wildvine, ditto in many of the 10K designs, and Azimuth and the Inert designs. Bro was in there cooking so many designs for Ben 10, like he's like the grandfather of the shit. While Tom Perkins had experience on superhero projects like the Batman show, his style really helped bring out the grotesque alien and more monster-like features that the classic series expressed alongside of its superhero aspects. The reason so many people like the art style is because of how it balances those aspects perfectly. The proportions for the aliens were all over the place, with forearms looking like a badass superhero with the stacked muscles and upper body. Then you take one scroll over in the Omnitrix, you then get to Wildvine, who looks very alien and weird with the lanky arms and body accompanied by long fingers and toes, if that's what they are. I don't know. You can call them little things toes, I don't know. The art style also lended itself perfectly to the show's animation. Now, I've said it so many times, but the animation in Classic is just so fucking raw, to say the least. With you being able to feel the weight of all the characters' attacks, just further adding to their designs. Vilgax in his design feels a lot more imposing and threatening when the animators give him tons of power and weight behind his leaps and strikes. All the alien and mutant designs feel just as gross as they look when you see the nasty drool fall from their mouth or just the unnatural way some of them move. This attention to detail further transcends the show and its art style, and I haven't even mentioned small details like Upchuck's skin looking all jelly-like and shining in some moments, or all the background aliens in Secret of the Omnitrix looking different and even being species seen in the Omnitrix, but they look different from Ben's species in the Omnitrix. Like it's just so fucking cool. Or the extremely detailed transformation scenes that always have had so much sauce and detail, you could convince me they were storyboarded by the Lord himself. The classic series art style just had so much, well, style to it, becoming a point of reference when talking about 2000 action shows, which is also why I was kind of baffling when they changed it. The transition from Classic to Alien Force isn't as jarring at first glance in the fact that the art styles may not look all that different to most. Alien Force and Ultimate Alien kind of just look like a more grown-up and serious style of Classic, which makes sense as Ultimate Alien was a more serious iteration of the show following the Classic series. However, once the show went on and once you start to look harder, you'll notice the differences. For starters, it isn't actually essentially the same art style even if it looks very similar. The design team went through some big changes between shows, such as 2 brand new people being brought onto the design department. Glenn Wong and Glenn Murakami were both brought on to oversee and work in the UAF design department. The 2 of them had experience working on shows within the DC animated universe, which I brought up a lot. Who knows, maybe I really like the DC animated universe and we'll make a video on it in the future, but I'm not confirming anything yet. Just putting that out there if you guys want that. And naturally, some of those elements made their way into UAF, like the darker lighting choices for some scenes and backgrounds, along with the body proportion of characters having buffer looking upper bodies and just more simple designs being used with the aliens. The body types for the aliens were all very similar to each other, with them all looking much more humanoid and just based on more superhero like traits than they did in classic, and also having the Omniverse badge placed in the center of all their chests like it's some sort of signal, instead of putting them on random areas like in classic, which, you know, classic doing that so much sauce, boy, that shit was so icy. Oh, also, all the aliens are basically naked, especially Wrath, because they make a joke out of it in Omniverse.
Apoplexians have a highly advanced sense of shame!
That would mean all this time Wrath has been running around buck naked.
Compared to the concept art that gave a lot of the Alien Force aliens much more personality, the final designs kind of just takes all that away and only really has the personality show through the colors and small unique details that the aliens have, like Big Chill's wings being able to form a cloak when he's not flying, or Goop needing an anti-gravity projector to function. This new design philosophy didn't ruin the aliens, as most of them still end up looking pretty interesting and cool, especially the Big Chills, the Swamp Fires, the Chromostones, and the Echo Echoes. What really upset folks about the new art style was how it sort of lacked that detail Classic had. Classic had so much variety in everything it did for the most part, while UAF couldn't even make its background aliens look different or give robots any other color palette than red and silver. And also, once somebody pointed out that Gwen is just Ben with lipstick on, I have not been able to stop thinking about that. Or like whenever those alien crowd shots are shown and every single one of them look the exact same, it's kind of funny, I can't lie. While UAF isn't the most stylish or detailed, I never considered this era's art style bad. It's a great art style that has its moments for sure, and like Classic, it suits the tone of the show very well, in fact, with its more mature-ish look. It also delivered the franchise's most iconic looks, as whenever people think or talk about Ben 10, they think of him in his green 10 jacket or share the picture of him from Alien Force or Ultimate Alien. Whenever people think of Gwen Tennyson, they see her in her Alien Force or Ultimate Alien school uniform. And the same thing could be said about this version of Kevin and Azimuth and just almost any of the other main characters in this show. However, as recognizable as the art style became, it wouldn't stop the franchise from, once again, going through another drastic change. Coming off of Alien Force and Ultimate Alien, higher-ups wanted the tone and the look of Omniverse to be changed as much as possible from its predecessors, appointing Derek J. Wyatt, who did a lot of freelance work for the franchise during UAF, the lead art director and even a showrunner on Omniverse. With Derek J. Wyatt becoming the art director, Omniverse's art style naturally geared towards his style of work. A lot of the characters' features and proportions were more exaggerated and cartoony looking, similar to what you see in Derek's past work, like Transformers Animated, Teen Titans, and Scooby-Doo Mystery Incorporated. This new cartoony look for the franchise, coming off a more serious era, unsurprisingly was met with tons of criticism. However, looking at the art style without comparing it to previous ones, I'm gonna just say it's a great art style, man. Derek's art style works really well for action shows. Omniverse has some of the prettiest and coolest looking moments in the entire franchise, especially in those first couple seasons, all because of how well the art style both blends to the show and in its animation. The character designs, though, are where a lot of the controversies come in. Derek's art style, like I said, is super cartoony and exaggerated, which works for some characters and does not work for others. The designs in this show are super hit or miss, especially for Ben's aliens. You got the hits like Frankenstrike with his new look that gives him these stitches that further enhance that whole Frankenstein vibe, Jury Rig getting an actual good design that fits his power set and that doesn't just have him being a naked walking gremlin, Way Big getting more red accents and his alien features back, like the eyes on his chin that UAF for some reason took away. And honestly, all the newly introduced aliens all have designs that stick out when placed next to older aliens, even if they are pretty goofy like the giant Lego man. But then you have the aliens who aren't so nice to look at. Some issues of course come from just how different the aliens look compared to their previous iterations, but even then I can't get behind some of them. The big change to Big Chill, both literally and physically, still is very jarring to look at, and I just still dislike it. I can't get behind it. Putting Humongosaur in his tidy whities, bro, like he did not need those, and why does he have this stupid ass sash on his chest? I'm also torn on Omniverse's use of green for a lot of aliens. I think it works for the classic aliens who originally had those black and white outfits in classic, and like I said, it works for Jury Rig because anything is better than him being a naked walking little red demon. But it becomes too much for some other characters, like Chroma Stone, who has such an awful design when he appeared for the second time. Like, bro, what the hell do you have on? While Omniverse was a huge change coming off of Ultimate Alien, the art style, like the rest, still fit the show's new tone very well. The higher-ups wanted a huge switch up in tone, so going with Derek J. White's art style for a series that's more cartoony and lighthearted, but also cast to be serious at times, was the perfect decision, as he has a good track record with all his other shows being practically the exact same way, and you know, they all are bangers. I don't know anybody who doesn't like Mystery Incorporated, Teen Titans, or Transformers Animated. And seeing the actual product with just how well the art style fits the show's comedic and serious moments, it is just so hard not to love. Omniverse and its art style were super controversial, as even to this day some still strongly dislike it, while some have warmed up to it because they rewatched the show learning to appreciate it, or because when Ben 10 came back after Omniverse ended, he came back looking the worst he's ever looked in the franchise. The Ben 10 reboot, for reasons that have been oversaid at this point, is comfortably the worst series in the franchise, with the art style sort of playing a part in that as well. Being one of the many Cartoon Network reboots, it adapted an art style similar to all the other reboots, with a simple, cutesy, vibrant style to attract younger audiences. Now, I would never say this art style is horrible per se, I just think it's filled with little to no real personality, which is a hard thing to get away with for a franchise like Ben 10. It's such that all the character designs all look pretty much the same, with the only differences being in their color and like size, but it's even worse that the aliens have no life injected into them. A few aliens do translate pretty well over in this style, like Forearms, Heat Blast, Accelerate, Diamond, and Cannonball, but they still can be pretty boring to look at, as the art style doesn't help convey that alien theme that the franchise has so strongly emphasized, especially when they decided to overhaul Wildvine and Stinkfly's design. These two in classic had always felt the most alien in the series to me, which is why the reboot turning them into humanoid creatures sucks, as they straight up just look like cosplayers. As uninspiring as his art style is, it does have some good in it. Like, it gave Humongouser a pretty decent redesign, Rab doesn't look half bad in it, and Jetray has a pretty good design too. Also, the new aliens like Shyrock and Slapback have pretty good designs too. And honestly, Kevin's arsenal of aliens that are kind of just like mirror versions of Ben's are probably the most unique and freshest thing in the reboot. The art style like Omniverse also tends to dive into those super goofy expressions, which honestly I feel like is more appropriate here than in Omniverse at times. I also love how creative they got with some of the transformation sequences. It's just hard to say I love this art style because of just how it was used for almost every single reboot, and how it just lacks any of that real true alien feel that any of the other art styles were able to carry. I mean, the art style was like so bad to some that some of the Omniverse haters were praising Omniverse. Like, you know how bad something has to be for somebody to go back and appreciate something that they hated with every fiber in their body? Like, yeah, that's like ground zero for knowing you definitely missed. Even when it did or didn't hit, Ben 10 was not afraid to experiment in its lifespan. I mean, they even attempted 3D animation in live action. The series could have just kept the classic series art style throughout its entire run, and while a lot of people would have liked that, I'm honestly a fan of how they weren't afraid to experiment and how they kept experimenting. With a concept in a world like Ben 10, it's not a surprise that they were able to find new and interesting ways to constantly represent the show. From the comic book look of classic, to the mysterious and serious look of UAF, to the then comedic and light-hearted look of Omniverse, and to the then playful and I don't know, outdish, I guess, look of the reboot. It's a part of why Ben 10 became the popular cartoon franchise it is, because of how all the different iterations are able to stand out when placed next to each other in just any other show. I honestly have nothing really against these art styles except for maybe parts of Omniverse, because they did my boy Chroma Stone so dirty with that fucking redesign. But besides that, I really do love every single art style we got, except for like the reboot. But like I said, it has its moments. All the art styles succeeded at what they were going for though, which makes it really easy to immerse yourself in these shows. Very rarely ever feeling pulled out because you know the last series looked different and now you're watching a show that looks different from the last, because they all in some way capture that Ben 10 magic. But maybe I'm just a fanboy who can't see the bad and shit, so let me know down below how you feel about Ben 10 and constantly changing its art style, and what was your favorite art style out of all of them, and is there an art style you would have wanted to try? Me personally, if Ben 10 ever does come back, I gotta see them handle that anime-esque art style. I'm sorry, I think Ben 10 would fit too well if they went for that anime-esque art style, but that's just me. Don't forget to leave a like on the video if you enjoyed it, and please consider subscribing to the channel, as I'm trying to hit 30,000 subscribers, and I can only do that if you subscribe. But until next time, it's been your boy Dan, the Boy Wonder, signing out. Peace.